Yeah, so part of my problem was that all through high school and all of my college degrees, I never had to study to get the grades. Grades came to me. It was always easy. And the
Hmm.
CPA exam is not like that. But I had
No.
awful study skills. So part of what the coaching program helped with was just learning how to study and what things I should
Hmm.
be focusing on and where, just what to do. Because honestly, I didn't even know where to
Hmm.
begin when became to studying.
Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience Podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Logan, and in today's episode, you're going to hear me talking with Sandi. Now, Sandi is another person that I had in the coaching program, so I was able to work with her directly and see her progress throughout her journey. Now, Sandi has a pretty cool story. She originally went to school years ago for education, but as time went on, she eventually kind of got put into a position where she was in charge of some of the elementary school and even some Dairy Queens accounting in the city. So even though she wasn't really looking for it, she kind of got switched in career paths. And because of that, she started working more in accounting and eventually decided, you know what, I'm going to go back to school and get another degree and go for the CPA so that I can continue in this career path. And something that she talks about at the beginning is that she didn't really know how to study for the CPA exam. In school, she was one of the people where her grades really weren't difficult to obtain. She was always able to pass her classes without too much difficulty, so she never really learned how to study. So when it came to the CPA exam, she really struggled to know what to do, which is why she eventually found Superfast CPA and joined the coaching program. So you'll hear how she was able to improve her process and finally pass her exams throughout this interview. Now, before we dive into the episode with Sandi, I just want to give a couple reminders. First, make sure you check out our Superfast CPA training webinar on superfastcpa.com. That is 1 hour where we will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam so you don't waste months or even years of your time failing exams. And after you watch that, you're going to want to learn more. So make sure you also check out becoming a Superfast CPA Pro member. Pro members get access to a lot of great stuff, including the Pro course, where Nate explains in depth how to pass the exams, basically a much more in depth version of the 1 hour webinar. And Superfast CPA Pro members also get access to the full versions of our multiple choice question walkthrough videos. The small versions are on YouTube, so if you want to check those out, you can, but the full versions are in our member forum for pro members. So check out becoming a pro member if you want to have access to our multiple choice question walkthrough videos. With all that said, let's dive straight into the interview with Sandi. So, welcome to the call today, Sandi. I'm excited to talk to you. For people who are listening to this, I have worked with Sandi a little bit personally. She was in the coaching program, so I'm excited to talk with her today. How are you doing today, Sandi?
Doing good. Doing good.
Awesome. And you have an awesome trip that I'm going to ask you about it maybe after we talk about your process. But yeah, let's go ahead and just dive in. So, what I like to kind of ask is I like to ask where people were when they started doing the CPA exam. Like, how did you get into accounting? What were you doing before you decided to do the CPA?
Yeah, so accounting was a second career for me. I was an educator prior to
Okay.
going into accounting. I had my first degree in elementary education and early childhood certification. I worked in preschools for about
Okay.
14 years, and then they moved me into the office, and I kind of started doing more. I started running the books and kind of became a comptroller for five preschools and three Dairy Queens. And my dad had been
Oh.
an accountant, was an accountant. And so I finally decided to take
Mhm.
the jump and just go over into accounting. Went back to school, got my bachelor, my second bachelor's and my master's, and started doing this. Now I've been doing accounting. That
Wow.
was
So
21 years ago.
yeah. So you switched to accounting 21 years ago. Is that what you said?
Hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's pretty cool because it like you weren't planning on that, but you just kind of
I was
fell into it
doing
with what they changed you to.
I was doing everything in my power not to become an accountant because I had watched my father be an accountant all my life.
Hmm.
But here we are. And he was very excited when I finally made the leap.
Yeah. Just curious, what did he do in accounting?
Taxes.
Oh, he was in Texas. Yeah, so I can understand why you were like, I don't want to do that with the busy
Exactly.
seasons and everything. Yeah. So you were in accounting, you went back to school, got your bachelor's in that, and then at what point did you decide to go for the CPA, and how did that start? What did that look like at the beginning?
Yeah, so I had gotten my bachelor's and then I got my master's, um, which was I think I finished my master's in 2006. And I was gonna
Okay.
go, I went right into trying to start sitting for the CPA exam. So I think I got my master's in December of 2006. 2007 is when I first started trying to sit for the exam. Um,
Okay.
my daughter at the time was a year old, year and a half. Um, so I had the responsibilities of her. And
Mm-hmm.
then I wound up going through a divorce and becoming a single mom. And so the process, it just kind of fell apart because of life,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know.
sorry about that. That
Um,
makes sense. Yeah.
it is what it is, right? Like you have experiences. Life is just a series of events. Um, and so in 2019, I had three parts passed, but my old arch nemesis of FAR uh, got me, and I lost those three parts because I could not pass FAR. So I gave up. I gave up for like 4 years, but I could never get it out of my system. And so when my daughter went off to college, I was like, now's the time. Now's my time. It's the
Mhm.
time for me. And so I started again.
Wow. So you had passed all three, and so and then FAR just would not let you be. Uh, so what was the because honestly, you did incredible in the coaching program. So I'm very interested to hear what was the difference at that point. Why like what made it difficult to finish? What was different that first time?
Yeah, so part of my problem was that all through high school and all of my college degrees, I never had to study to get the grades. Grades came to me. It was always easy. And the
Mm-hmm.
CPA exam is not like that. But I had
No.
awful study skills. So part of what the coaching program helped with was just learning how to study and what things I
Mm-hmm.
should be focusing on and where, you know, just what to do. Because honestly, I didn't even know where to
Mm-hmm.
begin when became to studying. Uh, and then the other part
Right.
that the coaching gave me was the accountability piece, because I also
Mm-hmm.
was diagnosed with ADHD not too long ago, and having someone to hold me accountable so that my brain didn't take me completely off track was
Mm-hmm.
extremely helpful.
Yeah, that I totally understand that. I was I was diagnosed with ADD in like November of 2022 or something like that. Um, and it definitely it can make a big difference knowing that you have that compared to not knowing. Um, and so what did your studying, because you said you kind of had you struggled with knowing how to study, knowing what to do. What like you passed three exams, so you obviously had something kind of down. What did your studying look like at that point? Like how did it look then?
It was kind of all over the place. I didn't have a routine. I would mostly focus on multiple choice because to me, that was the easiest way to get the information in.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to videos didn't really help me much. Reading didn't really help me much. I needed to do the multiple choice, but I
Mm-hmm.
still wasn't understanding the information. I wasn't taking notes properly. I wasn't going back and reworking the problems. I would do it. I would read over the explanation and go, "Yeah, I got this," and then I'd move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
also wouldn't ever go back to the topics. So if I finished a topic, that was it. I was okay. I'm moving on to the next topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So it was really just kind of similar as far as multiple choice questions, but just kind of erratic, not really having a strategy other than just jumping into the questions and not really like staying with the information
Right. It
like
was very
until
haphazard.
you really absorbed it. Yeah, yeah. Um, and so fast forward a few years, your daughter goes to college, and you decide that it's time to like actually do it. So did you immediate and for the benefit of people who weren't in the coaching program with you, what were you doing? Did you get super fast CPA before you got the coaching program, or did you get the coaching program right at the start of getting super fast CPA?
So when I first started trying again, actually hadn't
Mm-hmm.
even heard of Superfast CPA.
Yeah.
And I continued trying my usual methods, and I passed BEC and I passed regs, which those two were always somewhat easy for me because regs, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
tax accountant. It is what I do. And BEC just always
Yeah.
came easy. And then I couldn't pass audit and FAR again. And I finally decided that something needed to change. So I got Superfast CPA first.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried that for a bit, but it still
Okay.
wasn't quite enough. And then I got an
Mm-hmm.
email or something about the coaching program. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to put the investment into myself. And this is going to be my last straw. I'm going to see if this works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you did really well. I remember like you're one of the coaching clients that like I could tell you were putting in the work, and I could tell that you were like taking it to heart. And I wasn't super worried, and I wasn't surprised when you passed your exams. So when you kind of already mentioned this, but just to kind of reiterate it. So you got super fast CPA. Did you get the pro course, or what did you get the first time?
Yeah, I got the pro course.
The pro course, and did you get the study like did you get the whole bundle,
I think I did.
like the study
But I really
tools?
didn't. I didn't
Okay.
really
Okay.
use it the way I should have. It was kind of one of. It was another one of the things that I bought it thinking it would be great, and I just
Mhm.
didn't ever implement it the way I should have.
That was kind of what I was going to ask. Like, what? Why wasn't it working very well before the coaching program?
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with the accountability. I- I-
Hmm.
you know, part of it, I throughout the whole thing, throughout all of my trying to pass the CP exam, I work full
Hmm.
time. I do have my kid, even though she's away at school. I had her
Yeah.
that I still have to keep up with. I teach at the religious school, so there's always just a lot going on in my life. Um,
Hmm.
and without that accountability piece, I just wasn't pushing myself the way I should have and holding myself accountable. So I think
Right.
that for me was like the real important piece to it.
Yeah, and because like I said, you did really well, and it must have been just like having that, like me or Nate to talk to, and like kind of expecting you to be studying. You
Yep.
probably, I think you had the ability, but kind of having somebody to be like, no, you need to do this, like, or something like that. I think that sounds like that must have been something that helped. Um, so I guess kind of like let's dive into your study process a little bit. So you only had to take 2 exams with us in the coaching program.
Right.
Um, and remind me, did you pass both of those first try in the program, or what?
I did
Like, what was that
not.
like?
I actually failed both of
Okay.
those first try in the program.
Okay.
When I took FAR, I actually failed it, but got a 74. So I was
Yeah, I
super
remember that.
close. And part of the reason why I think I wound up with the 74 is that I had this grand plan, that I was going to go away for the weekend. I was going to spend the weekend studying. Then I was going to take the exam up where I had gone away to. But the one key factor I forgot was my charging cord for my computer. And so I wasn't able to actually study the way I had planned on it, because best laid plans. Um, so it all kind of fell apart, and but I wound up getting a
Okay.
74. So I was super close. And so what you
Right.
suggested was for me not to move on, even though I had already started studying for audit. You suggested that I not move on, that I just take 2 weeks to cram FAR again and take that before I moved on. And
Hmm.
when I did that, I got wound up with an 81.
Yeah. Yeah. I do remember that now. And so what? Because you had already passed BC and Reg, but that was kind of a little bit more partially because of your background.
Hmm.
Although I'm jealous that BEC was easy for you because that was by far the hardest exam for me. But when it came to FAR, and what do you think started making a difference besides the accountability for FAR and audit? Like, did you did you implement the whole program? Like, what changed?
Yeah, I think one of the big changes that made a huge difference was I started listening to the audio notes all the time. So I have half an hour, 45-minute commute to work every day. I would have the audio notes on coming and going. If I was going up to one of my other
Mm-hmm.
offices, which is further away, the audio notes were always on in the car. And I think that helped a lot because I may have zoned out a lot while they were playing, but every single time I would pick up at least one tidbit. And so even
Mm-hmm.
though I wasn't necessarily focused on them, they definitely made a difference. And then
Mm-hmm.
I also started doing the re-review, which made a huge difference of going back and always reviewing things I had already conquered, I
Studied.
guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was already confident that I knew those things, but I was constantly re-reviewing them at the end to make sure I was keeping up with everything and I wasn't just losing that information that I had already
Right.
absorbed.
Yeah. I would say like everything that we teach, I think, is important. But if there's one thing that's missing from somebody's process that is causing them to fail, I would bet money that a lot of the time it's not reviewing what they have studied in the past. Because, like you were saying, back when you were studying in 2019, you just, look at the multiple choice questions. Oh, I think I get it. Move on. And then by the time you get to the exam, you
It's
hardly remember everything that you've studied, especially the stuff you studied 6 weeks ago or something like that. So it does make a huge difference. um, and I'm curious, what did your typical day-to-day look like if you could kind of walk us through an average day of studying, like what time did you get up and such and such.
Yeah. So I am a morning person. So I would get up at 4 o'clock every morning, do whatever I had to do at home, get to the office between 6 and 6:30. And so I would study from 6:30 to 8:30 before anybody else got to the office. I would just use that nice quiet time in here to study. And that was my 2 hours a day. And then during the day,
Mm-hmm.
I would often do like the little 5-minute quizzes,
Mm-hmm.
5 questions or whatever. Just every time I was taking a break or picking up my phone, I would run 5 quick questions. But the main study session was that 2 hours. And then on the
Yeah.
weekends, I would study for probably the weekends I'd go to the library. I'd meet friends at the library and I'd study for about 4 or 5 hours on a
Okay.
Saturday and a Sunday.
Nice. Yeah, that was your library open on a Sunday?
Yeah, because the
Okay,
library that I
nice.
was going to was part of the university system.
Oh,
One
that
of
makes
our
sense.
public
Yeah.
libraries
Okay.
happens to be on a university college campus, and so I was using that one, and they'd be open all the
Okay.
time.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Because I tried something similar at first. Was I would try to go study at the library on the weekends, but it didn't work super great because I couldn't always get a room to study in. And then if I wasn't in a room, then I would be super distracted by all the people around me just because that's how I am. And so what I eventually started doing was I would go into the office even on the weekends. But I like that you mentioned that you would go into work early because that's exactly what I did as well, so that I could have a place to study. Um, do you think that the 2 hour morning sessions was also a big difference? Like, is that how you studied before as well? Or did you study in the evening before? How did it look before?
Um, Prior to I would just it was all so haphazard. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a routine down. Like the weekends, yeah, I'd go to the libraries, I'd meet friends, go to the library, and study there. But during the week, it was just kind of haphazard. And it was just wherever I found time, I would study. There
Mm-hmm.
was no
Mm-hmm.
real schedule to it. But
Mm-hmm.
once I started with the coaching, I was like, no, we're doing this. And so I made it a point
Mm-hmm.
to get to the office early. And the office is
Right.
I don't have quiet space at home. So the office is kind of my place to
Yeah.
come and find recluse because nobody comes in much
Yes.
anymore.
Yep. That's exactly. Yeah. I had two. children that I had like a 1.5-year-old and a 3-month-old when I was starting. So like it was, there was no way I was going to be able to study at home because they were going to wake up. And so that makes sense. Like I totally relate to that. During your 2 hours, did you do like, what did that look like? Did you just spend 90 minutes diving into the questions and then 30 minutes of review? Like, how did you work through questions?
Yeah, my 2 hour session during the week would really be just that. It would be 90 minutes of multiple choice. What I would usually do is I had a schedule that I had made of what chapters I needed to get through in order to finish my studying in the time frame that I wanted to. And so I would study for 90
Right.
minutes on those chapters that I had planned on studying for the day, and then I'd do a half an hour re-review of everything that I had learned up to that point. And
Mhm.
then on the weekends, I would add in the Sims.
Right. And I saw a comment on one of our YouTube videos saying that I should ask people more about Sims. So, what was your process for the Sims? Like, how did you break those down and kind of start learning and mastering them?
Simulations were always a little difficult for me in practice because they're just every one of them is so in depth and so varied, and
Hmm.
so I learned to use one of the main things with FAR was I learned to use a spreadsheet instead of trying to write it all out
Hmm.
or do calculations on my 10 key or whatever. I learned to use a spreadsheet, and that also helped when I was actually taking the exam because I would do it all on the spreadsheet and never use their scratch paper because it made the calculations just so much
Hmm.
easier. But I could also keep notes on
Yeah.
everything. And so I could save the work I did and then have notes as to why it was right and why I did the
Hmm.
calculations the way they were, why I set it up that way. And so I think
Right.
that really was key.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we try to push. It, you obviously don't have to study with a spreadsheet, but it makes sense to do it because most of us have experience with spreadsheets in accounting, and that's a tool that you will have on the exam.
Yep.
So, and it's way faster than writing on scratch paper or using the calculator or whatever. So, it's a good skill to develop specifically for the exam. And if it remind me if our I'm trying to remember because we did some show me assignments where I reviewed how you were studying. Do you have a calculator, like a 10 key calculator that prints out the
On my desk,
paper? Yeah.
yes, I do,
I
but I
I
wasn't
swear I
using
remember
it
you.
for studying.
Okay. I feel like maybe it was somebody else's that I reviewed, but I swear I remember like watching it and like I could hear you typing over onto the side, like doing
Could be
calculations
too.
and hearing the roll moving. Anyway,
I do. I love my
but
10 key. I refuse
I
to give it up.
I never. I mean, I know what they are and I've seen them, but I've never used them.
Yeah, my
Uh,
younger staff doesn't really use them, but I can't get away from it.
you can't stop. No, it's that. Uh, um, so that was kind of your morning, and you said that you would listen to the audio notes on the way to work, and then you would do some mini sessions. Did you ever really use the review notes very much, or was that one of the ones that you didn't use as much?
I didn't because for me, reading through things just doesn't make it stick. So I really didn't use those. The audio, listening to it was a lot more
Was
effective
Yeah,
for me.
that makes sense. Yeah. So, and then in the evenings, did studying this way allow you to kind of have your evenings to yourself, or what did it look like after you got off work for the day?
Yeah, I typically did not study in the evenings. Like I said, I'm a morning person.
Yeah. So you
So
probably
by the
never did
time I got
anyway.
off of work, I was just like
Yeah.
wiped out, especially because a
Hmm.
lot of the time while I was studying for these exams was during busy season. And so I
Right.
would work 10 hours a day. And then by the time I got home, studying 2 hours in the morning and then working 10 hours, I was just
Hmm.
wiped and I was
Yeah.
not doing anything more.
Yeah, and that's exactly why Nate and we have this built this way, is because that's exactly what happens to a lot of people. Most people who are doing the CPA exam are working full time, and a lot of them are doing what you were doing, where they're doing it during some kind of a busy season. And it's so hard to work 10, 12, maybe even 14-hour days sometimes and then go home and expect
Right.
yourself to study 2, 3, 4 hours. It's just unrealistic, in my opinion. So, but that's awesome that this way allowed you to, even during busy season. Did you pass both of them during a busy season or no?
Yeah, so I passed FAR in May. And in Florida, our busy season this year went through May 1st,
Right,
because of hurricane extensions. And I passed FAR just after that. And then I passed audit. I took it June 15th, I think it was somewhere around there. Um, and got the scores in July. So
right.
both of them
And
were pretty much during busy season.
yeah, that's pretty impressive. And what I'm just curious, what did people think about? Did anybody at your office know that you were doing that? Were they like, no, you can't pass the CPA exam during busy season, or did anybody say anything about that?
No, they all knew. Um, they've been along for most of the ride.
Yeah,
I've been at in this office for 15
for a
years.
while. Oh,
So
okay,
they've gone
okay.
along with me for most of the ride.
Right.
And so they all knew, and they thought I was insane, but also knew that it was what I needed to do. So
Mhm.
they were very
And
supportive.
that makes sense. Yeah. Just curious, is this like something that's gonna hopefully allow you to like move up, like be a manager or a partner or something like that?
So I'm right now currently a senior manager, and the
Okay.
next step in my career would be partner. And in order to become partner, in order to even be eligible to become partner,
Right.
I had to have the CPA, which
Yep.
was kind of
That
my
makes sense.
motivation for
Yeah.
doing it now.
Yes. That makes total sense. I mean, like, in the end, a lot of it always does come back to the progression, you know. Um, so, kind of going back to the Sims. So you said it was kind of hard to prepare for them and kind of hard to study for them, but how how did you study for them? Even though it was kind of difficult and stuff like that, how did
Honestly,
you do
just
it?
doing them. I just did as
Hmm.
many of them as I possibly could. I found if I really understood the information in the multiple choice, that helped.
Hmm.
And then it was just a matter of doing them and learning how to break them down because I
Right.
would get overwhelmed with the big picture of everything. So I learned how to just break it into smaller chunks and take each piece separately.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what Nate and I try to explain. So just to kind of like dive into that a little bit, because I think a lot of people really struggle with The Sims. So when you would break it down, how would you do that? Like, did you just take line by line and break it apart, or how did you do that?
Yeah, it would depend on the type of question it was. If it was like if it was one in FAR where I was having to calculate ratios, then
Hmm.
I would take it line by line. I'd be like, oh, wait, I know this ratio. Let's do this one
Uh
first.
huh.
And I'd go onto the spreadsheet and I'd write out the formula. Then I'd do the actual calculation, and then I'd enter the number. One of the things I did a lot on Sims, the one of the mistakes I kept making was I wouldn't read the whole thing, and it would tell you how it wanted you to round it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, although I'd have the answer correct, it would be wrong because I didn't round it the proper way. And it was good that I was making those mistakes during practice because then
Exactly.
it made
Mm-hmm.
me more aware of it when I actually came down to exam day.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the thing that's hard about Sims is there is diminishing returns where like you can't just do Sims for like 3 weeks straight and only do that. But you also do have to practice them so that you catch those mistakes like you found like, oh, I'm not reading the whole question and I'm getting this wrong for a reason that I should be getting this right. And that would be silly points to lose on test day. And so yeah, thanks for talking about that, because again, I know a lot of people really struggle with Sims, because they can kind of master the MCQs, like because it's more straightforward to do the
Yeah.
MCQs.
Well, and the
But
other problem with
mhm,
The Sims, a lot of them, especially the calculation ones, if you get one calculation wrong at the beginning of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
even if you do the steps right, the whole question is wrong
Yep.
because it
Everything's wrong.
feeds off of it. And so it becomes very frustrating, but you
Yes.
learn to kind of slow yourself down and take a deep
Mm-hmm.
breath and just do the best you can, really.
Yeah. And I'm curious, kind of, because to me that sounds like something that I would do, like not read the full instructions before just jumping into something. Not to get too personal or anything like that, but what what strategies did you have for ADHD that allowed you to still kind of like focus and still work and do those things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think one of the main things was I had to just keep reminding myself to slow down, that I had plenty of time to slow down, fully read the questions.
Mm-hmm.
I did start reading the actual end of the question of what it was looking for
Mm-hmm.
first, and then going back and rereading the whole question. I would also write down, if it said round up, I would write down round up, and
Uh-huh.
then so that it was right in my face.
Yeah.
Although I will say I did that on the exam. I don't remember what I wrote down, but I wrote something down and I worked the problem, never looked back at what I wrote down, closed out that test lit, went to start the next question, looked down and go, oh my God, I know I got one wrong because I didn't look at that. I didn't focus on that. So,
Yeah.
but writing it down at least kept it in my face. And
Yeah.
also, if I would feel my mind wandering, because I would notice that a lot, I would
Mm-hmm.
physically say to myself, okay, take a deep breath and focus on what you're doing. And I had to do
Mm-hmm.
those little tricks to kind of just bring my mind back.
Yep. That's definitely something that, I mean, I deal with that every day. Like even if I'm doing
Right.
something that I want to be working on, I'll just like start thinking about, oh, I need to be doing this and that, and like, so I can totally relate to that. So anyway, I like to ask those questions because this I would have loved to have heard something like that when I was going through the exams. So on test day, kind of going, because you kind of talked a little bit about test day, like you'd write it down over to the side. What did your exam days look like? Did like yeah, what was your typical day like? Did you do it in the morning, and can you kind of just
Yeah.
walk us through how your
So
exams looked? Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I found a testing center that I like. There's three that are close to me. Um, within a reasonable distance. And I
Mm-hmm.
found one that I really liked, happened to be the one that was furthest away of the three. But I really liked the people there, which made a big difference to
Oh,
me.
okay.
I'd walk in, they were super friendly. They recognized me, which is not what you want people in the testing center to do, because that means you've been there way too much. But they would recognize me, they'd be very friendly, they'd be very helpful. And they made it just a nice, calming atmosphere.
Right.
I would typically, because it was about an hour and a half drive to this particular testing center, I would schedule it at noon, between noon and 12:30.
Mm-hmm.
I'd drive down there in the morning. I'd go to a restaurant. I'd have a nice lunch before going to the exam because that helped to just kind of calm me and put me in a nice,
Mm-hmm.
good mood.
Yeah.
And then I'd go in and take the exam. This particular testing center, the other reason why I liked it besides the people was that it had windows. And so there was natural light
Oh.
coming in. It wasn't like you were in a dungeon. And
Yeah.
that made a big difference to my mindset. And when I'd sit
Yes.
down to take the exam, like on FAR, I would spend a few minutes right in the beginning, like writing down all of the ratios that I knew. So that when it
Mm-hmm.
came time to do those, it was already there. I wasn't having to think about it. I would just go,
Right.
oh, let's see which one, I need. And it was
Mm-hmm.
just easier that way.
Yeah. I've definitely heard a lot of people doing that. I remember my coach when I was working in public accounting, like my mentor, he said that that's what he did. He would always just like hurry and write down as much as he possibly could at the very beginning, like right before the exam started. Um, and actually, that kind of brings up a question. So, as far as like you kind of having those things on your mind, like I need to write this down so I can remember it. Did you use flashcards at all during your process for those kinds of things to kind of have them in your mind?
Yeah, I didn't use flashcards too often, but
Mhm.
when I was sitting and having my lunch before going to the testing center, I sat that whole time going through flashcards. And that was like
Perfect.
exactly what I would do just while I was eating. I'd just run through a whole bunch of flashcards.
Nice. And did you do physical or
No,
digital?
I did digital.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. But I was just curious.
Yeah,
And it's kind of a side question. Did you eat at the same place each time, or did you have
I
like a
did.
special ritual with that?
Ate at the same place every time.
What was it? What kind of food was
Um,
it?
what was it? It's it's called BJ's. And it's
Okay.
just like American food. I just have like a burger or
Okay.
chicken sandwich, but it was the
Yeah.
same place every time
Nice.
because it worked
Nice.
for
Yeah.
me. I get into these
Yep.
routines and
Oh yeah. I've mentioned this before, and this is a little embarrassing, but I was in a routine where I would every day I would go into my office, I would have a hot pocket for breakfast and have a Mountain Dew. Like that was what I did every morning. Not very healthy, but
it
just got into that
works.
routine. And I wore the same shirt to each exam, a Metallica shirt. So like, yeah, it kind of I think there is something to be said about it. Like it puts you in the mindset, like it
Hmm.
puts you in the zone. And did you have any any other things you were able to do, or rituals that you, well, I guess those are kind of separate questions. Did you have any other things that you were able to do because you were so efficient with the CPA exam? Like did you not have to miss out on things, or like what did it allow you to do?
Um, I don't know that I really had anything like that
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, it was all during
Busy
busy
season.
season.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't doing studying for the exam, I was working.
But I would say the other side of that is that you were able to do it during busy season when
Yes.
probably a lot of people wouldn't have even tried. So you know, um, what does your daughter think about all of it? Was she kind of like involved, or was she kind of like, oh yeah, good job, mom?
Well, she knew that I was struggling
Yeah.
with it. I was always very open with her because she
Hmm.
also struggles with test taking. And
Hmm.
so there were a couple things. One, I wanted her to see that you don't have to give up, that even if it's
Hmm.
hard, we can just keep pushing forward. And
Yeah.
so she knew, and she would joke with me about it, whatever. And when I was waiting on the scores for the last one, she said, well, there were two things. One, she said, oh, we're going to throw you a party, and it's going to be you over the decades trying to pass the exam in different stages of your life. I'm like, thanks, kid. Appreciate
have
it.
a slideshow.
And then when I finally passed, prior, like a few months, probably 6 or 7 months before I passed, her and I had been overseas and I had bought a purse. It was a Louis Vuitton purse, but I refused to let myself use it until I passed the exams. So when I
Hmm.
passed, she's like, "Oh, now you can finally use your purse." She's like,
that
"So
you
I don't have
that
to
you've
take
had
it
for
from you."
months. Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes, that was my gift to myself." But I
Yeah.
it just sat in my closet. I refused to touch it until I passed.
I believe Nate shared this, that he did the same thing. He did that with golf clubs. Like for each past exam, he would buy one piece of his golf set, but he wouldn't let himself use it, and he would just sit there staring at it like as a
Yep.
motivator. Like so yeah, I know a lot of people have done that. Um, I think we've covered a lot of the thing. I mean, again, you did really exceptionally well in the coaching program. I remember even when you didn't quite pass, you were so close. So like I knew that you pretty much had it. So I wasn't worried. And is there, before we kind of start wrapping up, is there any other part of your process that when you were thinking about this, you were like, I would like to share this, but maybe we haven't gotten to it yet?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think we've covered everything.
Perfect. One last question before we kind of do the final question. Uh, I remember you went to, you were like, now I'm heading to Ireland and Iceland. So was that trip in celebration, or had you already had that planned
No,
how
that
did that
that
work out?
trip had already been planned. We were seeing Billie Eilish in Ireland,
Oh,
and the trip was planned
nice.
around that. Um,
Okay.
but timing wise, it worked out to be a celebration because I don't know if you remember, but if I did not pass audit when I did, I was
No,
going
I
to
do.
lose two parts.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
I
I
was
remember
either
it
going to be
was like,
done
yeah.
or I was going to have three parts left. And
Hmm.
so it turned out into a big celebration of my passing.
Yeah, I do remember that now that you mention it. Like I was so I was so relieved when you said that you had passed. I was like, oh, thank goodness that she doesn't have to do three exams again.
Yeah, I was
Oh man,
holding my
that
breath the whole week.
uh-huh. And what was your reaction when you did find out? Like, were you just
So
relieved? Did you?
tears. No, just
Yeah, yep,
tears. It
yeah.
was because it had been such a long process. Because again, I
Hmm.
started in 2007. And so because it
Hmm.
had been such a long process, it was such a relief that it was just instant tears of just
Yep.
joy and release.
I can imagine. I mean, just to kind of, so with that, like you were technically taking the exams over the course of, what was it, about 17, 18 years? Did you take them all throughout that? It doesn't sound like were you taking
No,
exams the whole time? No, okay.
no, it was, I would do it and then I would not be passing, and so I'd stop and take a break for a while, and then I'd do it again. And then, like I said,
Hmm.
in 2019, I was like, "That's it, I'm done. I'm never doing this again."
Yeah,
And
because of one exam. Hmm.
actually went and got my EA because I was like, I am never
Okay.
doing the CPA again. The EA will do everything I need it to do. And I went and did that. And then in 23, I just, like I said, I still just could not get it out of my mind. So I was like,
Hmm.
no, okay, we are trying again. And several of my friends thought I was crazy and insane for continuing to try. But I'm like, you
Hmm.
watch me.
Yeah, and what are they saying now?
They're like, oh my God, you actually did it. I'm so impressed and I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. Uh, and just with the being in Ireland, and was it Ireland and Iceland?
Yep.
What was it just for the concert, or did you do any other fun things while you were there?
We were there for 10 days. We did all kinds of fun
Oh
things.
yeah, I bet.
I
Hmm.
loved Iceland. Iceland was my favorite.
Hmm.
Ireland was good, but not as good as Iceland. The really cool thing in Iceland was we were going from the airport to the hotel, and off in the distance, far distance, you could see the volcano erupting and the lava like
Oh,
spewing out. It was actually really cool.
was it terrifying, or were you like, oh, we're
We were
safe, we're
far
we're
enough
good?
away that it was not
Okay, okay,
terrifying. Had I been any closer,
okay.
different story, but we were far enough away
Yeah,
where you could see it,
yeah,
but I didn't, it wasn't coming
yeah.
anywhere near me.
That makes sense. Well, it's been awesome talking to you, Sandy. I think that we're just about ready to wrap up, but I do want to ask you the last question we always ask everyone, even if it's something we've already talked about. What would be your top two or three tips to people still going through the exam?
Um, I think first of all, I would say never give up, even when you are like at your lowest point. Just don't give up. It's doable. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Um, and then consistency really helped. Just setting that schedule, knowing what you need to get done each day, and continuing to review what you've already learned. I think those are the main things.
Perfect. Yeah, I, and that's something, just harping on the consistency right before we finish, the, like, that is like, if I could drill that into anybody's head, that is like the thing that I would try to be like, you have to be studying every day, try to create a routine where you're consistent. Like that is just kind of the base of all the success I've pretty much ever seen in the CPA exam. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Um, but I think that's just about everything. So again, thank you, Sandy, for being on the call. It was awesome working with you in the coaching program and seeing you succeed. And uh, yeah, congrats on being done.
Thank you. It is a
Yeah,
very good feeling.
I bet. Yeah, I know I do know the feeling, except not after 18 years. So I think it's even an even better feeling for you. So, uh, yeah, thank you for being on the call today, and I'll see you later.
Great. Thank you.
All right, that was the interview with Sandy, and I loved that episode. I loved talking to her about her journey and how she went from education into accounting and becoming a CPA. And I thought it was funny that her whole life did not want to be an accountant because her father had been an accountant and worked in tax. So she was like, I don't want to do that. But now she's doing the same thing and it's working well for her career. And again, it was awesome working with her in the coaching program and being able to see her improve and get to the point where she was able to pass exams on her own. And that's the whole point of the coaching program, is less about tutoring and, showing specific problems or things like that in the topics, but more focusing on how to study, teaching you how to basically fish on your own instead of us giving you the fish. And I think Sandi did really well with that. And it was awesome to hear about her story of going to Ireland and Iceland. Now, with that, that is the end of the podcast episode. Before you go, again, make sure you check out becoming a Superfast CPA Pro member on SuperfastCPA.com. You'll get access to the full multiple choice question walkthrough videos that we have for FAR, audit, a lot of reg, a lot of TCP, and a lot of bar. And you'll also get access to the pro course where Nate explains in depth how to pass the CPA exams. Also, an easy way to learn about all that is by first going to SuperfastCPA.com and signing up for our free 1-hour webinar training. We will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam so you don't waste months or even years of your time failing exams. So check that all out. I hope that you liked the episode. If you did like it, make sure to like it and leave a comment in the YouTube video or leave a rating in your favorite podcast app. Thanks for watching or listening, and we will see you in the next episode.